Nick Dare stood with his brothers, killing time until they were let into the theater to see Harrison's latest movie. He did his best to keep his attention on the conversation around him, but it was hard. Yesterday, he'd been in L.A., overseeing an issue in one of their California Meridian hotels. Tonight, he was in Manhattan, trying to keep his eyes open. He and his siblings wore tuxedos, all except Zach, who insisted on marching to his own beat, which in this case meant he was dressed in dark jeans, a hooded leather jacket, and scuffed black motorcycle boots. Ever the rebel. The only person missing was his twin sister Jade, for reasons everyone understood. She suffered from migraines and wasn't feeling well, though Nick sensed the reason she'd skipped tonight went deeper than that. He'd have to talk to her about it tomorrow. "I thought you were bringing a date," Asher, his oldest sibling, said, interrupting Nick's thoughts. "One of the women you know in the city." He took a sip of his vodka as he waited for an answer. At the question, Nick rethought his decision not to drink tonight, but he'd figured the alcohol wouldn't help his jet lag. No. Last woman I was with used up her 3 dates," Nick said. Harrison groaned. "You really are an asshole." Nick shook his head, disagreeing. "If I let a relationship go on, knowing it doesn't have a chance, then I'd be the asshole who led the woman on." He shrugged. "In 3 dates, I pretty well know if something's going to work out or not." "Seems fair to me." Zach burst out laughing. "Are you still using that rule? It's a solid one." As far as Nick was concerned, a woman's true personality wasn't difficult to discern, especially when money was involved. Women who were after him for the Dare name or fortune usually showed their true colors quickly. He ignored his brother's comments and turned to look around. Thanks to Harrison's talent and fame, Nick was used to premieres, after parties, and mixing with celebrities around the room. His gaze landed on Dash Kingston, lead singer of the original Kings, and one of Nick's favorite rock bands. They'd met earlier when Harrison had introduced Dash's very pregnant wife as the producer of tonight's film. Beside him stood a blonde woman with a knockout body in a gorgeous, fitted gown. A surge of awareness rippled through him, but it wasn't one of simple attraction, though he was definitely drawn to her. It was something more. He continued to stare until, as if sensing the weight of his gaze, she turned her head. Her eyes widened, and he realized he'd been right. What he'd felt was a renewed connection with the only woman with whom he'd experienced something real. He might have been young then, but he'd known. He was halfway across the room before he registered that he'd moved. Though people blocked his way, he managed to catch sight of her rushing out the double doors. So he followed. He reached the hallway just as she disappeared into the ladies' room. He had no doubt she'd recognized him, but he didn't understand why she'd run. They'd had one amazing night together. Why would that freak her out now? Determined to get an answer, he propped himself against the wall outside the bathroom door and settled in to wait. Aurora, no last names needed, had gotten away from him once before. He wasn't about to let it happen again.